In part two of this Ali Farag interview, we begin at the TOC in January of 2019, where Farag beat Mohammed El-Shorbagy in 5 games, and in doing so, he became the world number one for the first time in March 2019. In this episode, we get into how this seemed to be the trigger to unlocking an unparalleled run of success for Farag over the last 4 years. He opens up about what it means to be a 4-time world champion and world number one, but also explains why winning the British Open was not a career-defining moment. We get into the nitty-gritty of his biggest rivalries, none bigger than Mohammed El-Shorbagy, who he says masterminded the blueprint for what it takes to be the very best and to stay there. We also touch upon nicknames, the web-weaving style, and those in his corner who've influenced his style and approach to the game, his brother Wael, Mike Way and Kareem Darwish. Here is part two of Get to Know Ali Farag. All right, welcome back, ladies and gents. We're into part two now. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty of the most successful era in men's squash since the Khans. How do you like the sound of that?
I can't believe it. I'm not sure I even
I know it's a big call. It's a big call.
I'm not even sure I agree with you, but honestly, just to be in the conversation means so much.
You don't have to.
Yeah,
that's the job of the pundit. So I'll get into why I believe that or why I said that. Sort of towards the back end of this. But okay, now. You mentioned just in part one the big win over Mohammed El-Shorbagy TOC, and I reckon that was definitely a landmark victory because, as you said, like you've sort of learnt your lesson after jumping the gun a little bit with calculations, the rankings end of 2018, and being able to turn that situation around so quickly. March 2019. You win the World Championship. I mean, you know, it's the pinnacle of the game. Absolutely. In Chicago. It was the beginning of what's been a fairy tale run for you over the last sort of 4 years. And then you get, like I said, you get to world number one. So that you know, the demons of what happened at the end of 2018 are gone.
Yeah.
It seems to have, it just feels like it released like the shackles, and you've been so relaxed ever since then.
Absolutely. You know, I've heard Laura Mazzaro when I was young, after she'd won the World Champs and become world number one, she said, it's a totally different feeling when you need something and when you want something. When you need it, you're too desperate and you're over-calculating things and you're overthinking things. When you want, you're still very hungry. It's the perfect balance. You're still very, very hungry, but at the same time, you're more relaxed playing. So I've been blessed that I've achieved my dreams at an earlier stage of my career, and now I can release myself and play a better squash.
Yeah, and exactly. And I mean, 2019, you had an exceptionally... unbelievable run. After that World Championship, you dipped out to Abu Elgar at the Grasshopper Cup. That was the last time in that year you didn't make a final. You made the final of every event in 2019 following that.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's why obviously your run at number one began there, so consistent with your performances. And, you know, just sort of rounding up what's happened over the last 4 years, you know, world champion 2019, 2021, 2022, 2023. That's 4 in 5 years. You've won the last 3 in a row. As I said, that hasn't happened since the Khans. So they're sort of big names to throw around and put you in that mix. You finally get that British Open as well this year in April.
Yes.
No doubt that was sort of one to tick off after losing in the final 3 times in a row. There must have been, certainly with the British, still a sense of relief in a way. Or not?
Believe it or not, not really. I mean, as big as the British Open is, as much as I've wanted to win it, had I stopped my career, had I finished my career without winning the British Open, it would not have been a regret. You know, I've given it my very best every single time I was there. I've come short in 3 finals against 2 top opponents, twice against Paul, once against Mohammed. For different reasons, I've lost to them, but they were. The 3 times they were the better players. They were the better players than I was. So, I mean, I was going to keep chasing it. I was going to keep working hard towards it. But if it hadn't happened, my life would have been exactly the same on post-squash.
Well, there you've said it. I mean, we talk about having that relaxed nature, and that certainly that epitomizes what we're just talking about in a way, because having that kind of attitude towards all these big events, like I said, winning the World Championship seems to have been just hit that button where, like, you know,
absolutely
everything's open now, and that makes you a dangerous sort of opponent for everybody going forward, as long as you're feeling happy and in a good headspace. Touching upon, now you mentioned Mohammed and you mentioned Paul Cole in particular, because I've sort of got a list of the rivalries that you've had over the last 5 years, and it really. At the top of the list is Mohammed. It's PSA's 13-14. So that's how it stands for you.
I'm 13, he's 14.
Exactly.
Okay, interesting.
Paul Cole, 17-6 in your favour. The rest of the guys that I'm going to mention, you've got a big lead over. To be fair to Paul Cole, though, he has had success against you. It was, you know, in terms of the media, it was pretty well illustrated that he was, you know, trying to throw the ball up a lot more. He was trying to press you over to your forehand. Since 2021, he's won 5 of the last 9, so he's definitely had success.
Absolutely.
Obviously, knowing you and knowing, you know, the engineering brain in you, you know exactly what's going on, and you've worked on having an antidote against that kind of game plan as well.
Absolutely. As you said, I mean, Muhammad...
Without letting it out of the bag.
Yeah, no. I mean, there is nothing much to hide. I mean, he knows how he plays me. I know how I play him. So there is nothing to hide here. It's very obvious. But yeah, on top of the list and second in the list and third in the list and all the way down to 10th in the list is going to be Muhammad, my biggest rival of my career. Muhammad, and I keep telling him in his face, I keep telling it publicly, he's the one who's pushed our generation and who's given our generation the belief that we can go through and break through those top guys, the likes of Nick Matthew and Gauthier, and he paved the way for us, and then he kept pushing us to get better every single day. So for that, as much as he's been a nightmare for all of us, he's been, what's the word? He's been great for us. Let's put it this way.
He's flown the flag for Egyptian squash, without a doubt.
He's flown the flag.
And inspired you guys to get that level of consistency in the top sort of 3 or 4.
Absolutely, and he's given us guideline how to work towards becoming the best we can be. And Muhammad, I mean, as much as people talk about Muhammad, I think he's still underrated for what he's achieved.
Oh, I don't think he's underrated. Not by me anyway. He's incredible.
He's incredible. Yeah. He is incredible. As for Paul, yeah, I mean, as I said, after my match against him at the World Champs, he's made me a better player because I've always taken pride of how I take my opponents on the backhand side and dictate the play from there. He's the first who's come and taken me on the right-hand side and I wouldn't say shown my weakness, but taken away my strength on that side. Yeah, okay. So I had to work on the forehand side a lot with Karim Darwish, and who better than to work with on the forehand side than Karim Darwish? Exactly, to make me feel like this is a strength of mine as well. On the floor and the overheads as well, because he would throw it up there and down here. So he was very smart, thanks to his coach, obviously Rob Owen, who's a brilliant brain as well. He's made me a better player, and again, I thank him for that. And now that I've gotten the better of him the last time, I'm sure he's going to come up with a better plan the next time. This is exactly what we train for.
This is a great point, and it's fair play there to mention Rob as well, because it's just this escalation of players looking for ways to beat each other. And I mentioned it. I mentioned on a podcast at the end of 2022 with Jerry Gibson. I said that I think the men's era is reaching a crescendo point where we're really going into a sort of golden generation Mark II. At the moment, which is brilliant, and it's if I can be a small part of it, I'll be over the moon really, because I'm so modest, mate. No. Honestly, I mean, I grew up listening or hearing the names of Jonathan Power and buying the rackets and running after them to get the wristbands after their matches, and Peter Nicol and Gauthier and Palmer and Lenkus. You know, those guys. You know, I wanted to be. Just shake their hands. I would just like dream of shaking their hands. And now that I'm in the same conversation as them, it's something that I'm really proud of. And again, it's thanks to my rivals for getting me up here. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, the men's game and the women's game in an incredible spot at the moment. No problem. Now, of those guys, I'll just sort of run through some other. I mean, you mentioned Goward. It's 11-10 with Goward. Yeah, so he has been. He's certainly provided issues for you and been a bit of a pest to play, and there's no doubt about that. Diego, you've got a 17-3 record over, so but a lot of 5-setters in there. Very tough opponent. Yeah. And then there's been Tarek, of course. You've had some humdingers with him over the years, and I remember here in Gouna, 2018, he had you 2-love. He had you in trouble. I remember that was a very big match as well. What about Greg Gaultier? Because you had 6-6 with him. There was some serious battles there as well. The 6-6 is very funny. He was 6-love up. I came back to 6-2. Okay. So it's a bit unfair to say who is the better player, because I never played him at his peak. He never played me at my peak. So it's crossover. And I'm glad I didn't play him at his peak, because when he was at his peak, he was a nightmare to play against. But I would have loved. I mean, I discuss with Karim Darwish all the time how would I have featured against his generation, and it's hard to tell really, because the game is evolving in a different way. We're playing at a faster pace, but not necessarily at the same accuracy they used to play at. It's different, you know. So it's hard to tell. But yeah, I mean, as I said, Muhammad paved the way for us to learn how to play with those guys, to have the belief that we can beat them, and I'm glad that I got a few wins against the likes of Greg. Oh, you certainly did. I mean, just a couple of things now in terms of, you said about you're very organised with your play, and you do a lot of sort of homework about how you're going to play. Now, we've mentioned on Squash TV web weaving. There was the nickname.
You came up with that, right?
I did, yeah, I did.
You did.
I came up with that because the nickname Spider-Man, and I just had this feeling you were like that, like literally shooting webs out. But you do set traps, and you set them very well. And like you said, you set it up mainly from that mid-backhand area, or even countering in the front backhand. And then if that play works really well, it just opens up space for you with your cross courts. Your cross court width is the best in the business for me. You just never miss your mark. The nickname was also thrown around a lot by Joey the Raptor, but somehow nothing ever stuck. But I still like the Raptor somehow.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I love all of them, to be honest. I mean, I don't mind any of them. But for me, yes, it evolved from a very young age with my physicality, how I am. I'm light on my feet ever since I was young, and that's a talent. Obviously, I've worked on it, but that's a God-given talent that I really worked on and based my game off of, you know. I remember at the age of 16, I started losing to people I was not used to losing to, and then my brother came on board and he said, I was going to coach you at that time, and he was only 18 or 19 at the time. And he said, Ali, and he was very honest with me, you're a very annoying player to play against because you get every ball back, but you're not a strong player to play against. You need to make yourself strong. You need to make yourself the dictator rather than the reactionary guy. And to do that, you have to have the best length game in the business, and you have to be the best volleyer in the business. And then I've based my game off of that sentence ever since. And and I was never as talented as the Egyptians are. I was never that guy. Yes, I do have different talents, but I'm not necessarily in terms of racket skills. I've got the flashiest of winners or the most explosive movement to the front two corners, like the Gawaz or the Asals or the Mazins. You know, I'm different. So I needed to base my game off of that, and because I'm light on my feet, I would like to think I move more efficiently than my opponents. And if the game gets longer and I make them do more than the work than I do, then this is when I get them in that trap, if you like.
Absolutely, efficiency comes into play. That's fantastic. You do, I mean, you hedge better than anybody in the business on that short line. There's no doubt about that. Now, just to round things up, because it is sweltering out here, and I can see both of us are sweating. Just to give you, like, back to the start of this part two, I said you've really thrown yourself right up the top of the mix of the greats since the professional game started. So I do want to make mention of Jonah Barrington and Abu Talib and the Khan dynasty of the Azam Khan, Roshan Khan, Hashim Khan, all the way back to Bari, the Egyptian. But since the professional game started in 1975, you've been 2 years and 9 months at world number one, and that's not over yet, I don't think, far from over. Mohammed's was 4 years. Peter Nicker was 5 years, but the two Khans obviously being the top guys. But with the fourth World Open Championship, you've equalled Jeff Hunt, and you've equalled Amar Shabana, of course. And you've only got the two Khans in front of you. So in terms of that level of consistency, what you've achieved, in my mind, that's why you've put yourself in that top, certainly in the top 5-6 bracket since the professional era started.
Well, it means a lot, to be honest. You know, you can never dream as a kid that you want to be the greatest of all time. You can only dream of winning the world champs, and that's even a very unrealistic dream and a very far-fetched dream. But when you do achieve it, and then you relax, and then you keep on going, and things go in your favor, then you become in that conversation. I mean, it's only stuff of dreams, really. I mean, it's beyond anything you can dream of.
Yeah, and that's the point I wanted to make. I just you never struck me as a guy when you win that world championship. There are guys around that, you know, they'll have stuff stuck up on their wall, and I want to be world champion, you know, or the conqueror Jahangir Khan. Like, that was all mapped out. Like, you're going to be the greatest player ever. But since winning the World Open in 2019, it just feels like you just play it year by year, tournament by tournament.
Absolutely.
And, you're writing your own script.
And it's thanks to my parents, really. They always gave me the right perspective about life. I mean, if you, and Mike Way said that when I was at Harvard as well, if you're not Ali the squash player, you're Ali who also plays squash. Yes, squash is a huge part of my life, has always been, will always be, even post my squash career. But if you define yourself and your happiness solely upon your squash career, you're going to be a miserable man, because no matter how good you are, you're going to lose tournaments. Like at the world number one, you're going to win 6 tournaments a year and you play 13, so you've lost more than you've won. So you're going to be a miserable man. So I've always been lucky to have gotten married early, to a beautiful girl, to having given birth to another beautiful little girl, and those things I enjoy a lot more than winning world championships, let's say, and thankfully this has put things in the right perspective, and I've become a much happier man because of it. Yeah,
well, that's a fantastic way to round it up, Ali. You couldn't have said it better. Good luck to you here in El Gouna, and of course, let's hope that Noor El Tayeb can find a way to also perhaps get that elusive world championship one day.
I really hope so.
And let's see what happens with Farida over the next many years.
Let's
Squash or golf?
Not golf, but we'll see. We'll see.
All right, no, mate. Thanks very much. It's
Thank
been
you.
brilliant.
It's my
Appreciate
pleasure.
it so
Thank
much.
you very,
and
very
all the
much.
best. Yeah,
Thank
cheers.
you. Thank you.
And if we could invite Noor forward as well.